Hello, welcome back to another video. I know it's been a while. I've just been pretty lazy. I'm sorry about that. And it comes with the price. I lost a subscriber, and I do not like that because I'm not a big channel. I'm not big at all. I don't want to be huge like Mr. Beast. I want to have a fun little channel for me to play around with, and one share the gospel and one have fun with Disney stuff because I love Disney and I love Christianity because I am a Christian. If you do not know that, this is a Christian and Disney channel, as I have just stated. And in stating that, I will now talk about a maybe controversial topic. This could become very controversial. I hope it really doesn't. This movie came out a few months ago. It's called David. Now, if you know David, I love David. I love him. He's the greatest. He's my second favorite character in the Bible. Aside from Jesus, he's my second favorite. He's such a cool guy, and I mean he's a man after God's own heart. He's awesome. But what the issue was with the movie was the first, what I like to call the first half was mild. It was good. It was okay. There are two halves to this movie. And that's between him being a child and then him in his early adult years. As a child, he played the liar for Saul because he was the king of Israel that was going to be taken down. And instead, David was going to become the king, even though Saul didn't know. And David was the youngest and smallest of his family. Like everybody else was towering, strong, basically like tanks in his family. So instead of them being chosen, who looked the part, David would soon look the part and have the heart and the part. He would be the part, essentially. He would set a precedent for every single different king to move on with, like his son Solomon. If we look at David, he's a really neat guy. He's a man after God's own heart, for crying out loud. It says it in the Bible. He's a man after God's own heart, and he cares for others. You can see that where when one lost sheep is lost in the Bible, he goes after it. Kind of like Jesus. He also slays bears and lions with his sling and stone. Although in the movie this does not happen. He sings a song about not being afraid. Then he tries to help this sheep have birth, and then all of a sudden this lion comes out of nowhere. And instead of killing the lion, he helps him get trapped from under a rock, which is completely inaccurate, and it made me angry in the first scene. But I shut up because it could have turned around. As we move on, we see Saul appear, troubled, and there's this whole thing where not only David helps him sleep, but like a whole townsfolk of people help him sleep, which just isn't accurate at all. That's not true at all. I get they could have had a big musical number, but if Angel's trying to be the new Christian Disney and whatnot, they could have simply just played him. They could have simply just had David singing without a whole choir in the background. I mean, look at Snow White. She, in the original movie, not the new one, in the original movie, she just sang and then music came in the background. They didn't need that whole stunt. But it was fun to watch, but it wasn't right. It was super inaccurate. David was the one that played the lyre, didn't sing but played the lyre, and Saul would be calmed down and would go to sleep because the fact that God had left him, he was no longer at peace. Moving on, now we have the situation that made me very happy. Actually, this isn't a situation. This is something that made me very happy in the movie because in the movie you gotta involve David and Goliath. That's David's climax of his life. That's when everything starts to turn out for good. Actually, I wouldn't say that. I'd say him being attacked by Saul might be that. Moving on. In this we see the David and Goliath scene, which is actually really well done. They put his armor on David. They put Saul's armor on David. Doesn't fit. He runs off, gets his sling and a stone. And this isn't in the Bible. He doesn't make a little speech in the Bible, but in this scene he does, and I like it. I like how this correlates. He says, I do not need to fight you. I do not need armor. I do not need swords or shields. I have the Almighty God who will protect me. And that is true. The Almighty God will protect you. He has already won the battle. And I'm not saying you shouldn't try and fight for yourself. I'm saying you should definitely try and fight for yourself. But you shouldn't put all your weight on yourself. You should put all your weight on Jesus. That's why he died on the cross. That's what David is doing. He's putting all of his weight on God. He's not putting all of it on himself, so he doesn't have to go and like charge and like tiny sword, chink chink chink, dead. Because we see that happen later in the Bible, and the people who do that die. But if we look closely, this is a great scene, and it really shows the love and passion that David had for God. And after this scene, David then returns to the people, and they're like, Saul has killed hundreds while David has killed thousands, which is actually what they say in the Bible, but they didn't show that. In this scene, we have David singing another song about not giving the glory to him but to God. And, I mean, it's a cool song, but it's not accurate. And then, because in the Bible, people were like, yes, God is with this kid. God is with this person who slays Goliath. And moving on, we see Saul and David are in a room while he's playing the lyre. Actually, they're just having a conversation. See, what this completely glosses over is Saul sending David out to kill Philistines, and David coming back and saying, I have not only killed 100 like you asked me to, I have killed 300. I have not only killed 500 Philistines, I've killed 600 for you. Like, my glory and not my glory, my king, you are the one I follow. You and God, I follow you two. And since you are my king on earth, I follow your command, unless it violates God. And we see this up until Saul finally snaps, and he takes the spear and chucks it at David, nearly misses him, and says, I'm sorry, David. A demon must have come over me. They don't do that in the movie. They have Saul have this whole nervous breakdown where he's like freaking out. He's slamming his head against the wall. He's punching things. He's tearing robes. And he's like, God has left me, and he's left you too. And then he stages this whole thing saying, David has attacked me. David has tried to kill me. And which is not true. I mean, does he get accused for treason? Yes. But even though the soldiers knew that it was a lie, they still work with him. They put a lot of emphasis on David's brother, which made absolutely no sense. It didn't work. It was not true. His brother was talked about once. They never see him again. Or any of his brothers, that is. And they also keep doing this thing with this little lamb that that David helped give birth to from this other lamb, because this lamb was giving birth, and that's when he fought the lion and whatnot, or fought the lion. He then also has this thing with his mother, where even his mother isn't talked about in the Bible. His mother is given this big role where she has this whole thing about, I mean, it's cool to trust in the Lord, but his mother has this whole side plot. This lamb has this side plot. David's got his whole thing going on. He has this really good song I love called Why God, and and I love that Phil Wickham voices him because I love his music. But this whole song Why God focuses on, why am I being tormented? Why is Saul hunting me? Why is this happening? You said you'd be with me. You said you'd protect me. Why God? And so he goes to the priests, but it's not entirely right here, because after he runs away, he goes to the chapel or the church, and he doesn't ask for help from the priests. He walks in, and the priest is like, what are you doing? What's going on? What's going on? David, what's happening? What's happening? And he just takes Goliath's sword and runs away. That's not right. In the Bible, he was given manna, and he was given he's given bread that they only ate on certain days. It was holy bread, and he was given the sword of Goliath. And then he runs off into the wilderness and then nearly dies. And he's got this whole side plot with different people from Bethlehem that we don't even know. Random people like in the new Snow White movie, they have that bunch of scallywag random people from the town to go help find Snow White's father, which is a completely different side plot that wasn't needed. In this movie, they try to do that exact same thing almost, except it doesn't work because it's just not true. And what they gloss over was the fact that David had built up an army. He had built up a group of people. He had basically built a whole kingdom of his followers, and instead they're building up Bethlehem. They have the people of Bethlehem hiding in a cave, and when Saul goes to chill, that's when the whole, like, cut the cape and say, hey, I mean, that part is partially accurate. And then they have the whole, Saul, you're my king, I did not try to hurt you, I had the chance to kill you and I didn't, so please forgive me, stop trying to persecute me or try to kill me. And then they hug, and we think it's over, but then Saul pushes him away and move on. Jonathan is barely talked about, even though there was a whole bunch of stuff where David would hide in the fields and he'd shoot the arrow, and the arrow would have a message on it, and David and him would like talk to each other. They skipped over David being married to Saul's daughter. They skipped over that whole thing. They skipped over him faking his death to run away because his daughter was who informed him that he was going to be killed by Saul, or Saul was trying to kill him in the Bible. So they're glossing over all these big details that drive the plot and the story of the Bible in 1st, 2nd Samuel, 1st, 2nd Kings. The thing that drives the story is David. He's the center point, and they're just pushing all of it away. And then after the whole I'm trying to follow, they go to this town, and this is where they bring in the Amalekites, who have no point in this entire movie. This whole movie is based on David, and he not once is he really ever referencing the Amalekites. There's one time, and that's where he talks about that they were an issue and they were to be dealt with. But they go to this old town of the Philistines, and apparently there was a truce between the Philistines and the Israelites that is never talked about in the Bible. And when Jonathan and Saul die, David doesn't know about it. He's already allowed back in Jerusalem, back in Israel, because he's no longer being hunted by Saul. He's allowed to be in that area again. He's back to being family with Jonathan. He's back to being with his wife. He's back to being with Saul. And he has his own separate little following. And when Saul and Jonathan die in the movie, David tries to go and dress up as a Philistine, and then like he grabs these bunch of misfits, and they all go to the Philistine army, and they sneak in, and then they're going to supposedly take them out from the inside. And right when the war starts, they realize that their home, where the old Philistine camp is being attacked by the Amalekites, and they have to go back and save them, but they can't because they have to go help Saul and Jonathan. But then Jonathan and David see eye to eye, and he watches Jonathan go down on his horse and die. And then David runs off to go help his family, who is then taken by the Amalekites, and then David has to go fight the Amalekites, but he doesn't fight the Amalekites. He walks up to them, sings, gets knocked out, tied up, and rode down, doesn't sing anything. He keeps saying, he sings the same line over and over again. Everybody else stands up and fights the Amalekites and saves him. He's like, I will not be just keeps getting knocked out over and over again, punched in the face, and they've got random characters standing up saying, I will not be afraid, for no reason at all. There's no reason for this, and they added this random stuff, and it doesn't even drive the plot. What happens in the Bible is when Jonathan and Saul die, David is at Israel chilling. And then this man walks up and says, here, I have the gauntlets and the crown of Jonathan and Saul. You are now the king of Israel. To which David tears his shirt and says, how do you know this? And he says, I am a Philistine who has returned from the battle. And I saw Saul with his spear impaled in him. And he says, I beg of you, end it now. Kill me. And so the guy literally kills Saul. And then David says, how dare you kill Saul, the king of Israel, the one that God anointed? Send this man to die. And this man, expecting a big praise, gets killed instead, which is an awesome moment because it shows that David doesn't care whether Saul tried to kill him or not, whether he's supposed to be king or not. Even if the king asks you to kill him, he still doesn't take that lightly. He takes that offensively and kills you for it because you're taking away the one that God chose. The only one that should kill the one that God chose is God, because God has that authority. And this is what really makes me angry, is they skip that whole thing, and when he even tears his shirt, he tears it and says, God, I am now the leader of your people, and chucks it out. He doesn't even tear it in half. He's given this little robe, tears off the corner, and chucks it. Like, he has this whole thing with the sheep again, whole thing with his mom again, and his sister who keeps appearing and reappearing, who isn't even a character in the Bible, and they keep talking about the random stuff he does. Like, even every single trailer had this song, I Will Not Be Afraid, talked about, and the only time this plays at the very end when he's fighting the Amalekites. This whole movie takes away from the point of the story of David. It is that you need to put your faith in God. The whole thing is put your faith in the song and people will rise up and fight with you. Yes, God protected David in the movie. God did this in the movie. He made sure David wouldn't die in the movie. But it doesn't correlate the story correctly. And it makes me even more mad that they took a character that is so well known in the Bible, and they could have taken like a day to maybe an hour to read the whole story and do it correctly. they couldn't take the time to do it. It's the same issue they're having with Animal Farm. They couldn't have taken the time to read the book or maybe even watch the movie. There's a version of it on YouTube. I watched it yesterday. It's not that difficult to recreate. We need to stop modernizing movies that are based on books and actual history like the Bible, and we need to just make them according to the story. Yes, you have to add some conversations. Yes, you have to add some things like in The Chosen when they add some conversations and they add some interactions. But you can't make it a significant part of the story. This one character who because in the story they have people lining up to help Saul and play music for him, but instead David is pushed to the front because they're like, oh, we don't want to go because we're going to get scared and attacked by Saul. This girl, who I think is Lauren Daigle, Lauren Daigle voices her, she gives him her lyre, and he goes and he plays it for her, and then the whole group gets into playing music for him. Lauren Daigle is the first to stand up against the Amalekites when David's been tied down, and all of a sudden the misfits who he went with to go and help Israel from the Pharisees appears and starts fighting the Amalekites, and then we don't even get to see the battle. The Amalekites run away, and it fades to black. And then it fades to him going back to Bethlehem and becoming the king after Saul's advisors come to him and are like, my king, my whatever. It's like Hotep and Hoy. A movie that does this almost perfectly is The Prince of Egypt. It might not get the age correctly. It might not get all the characters correctly, but it's able to correctly take something and put it into motion and make it work. It makes me mad because the story of Exodus isn't that difficult. They took it and they put it incorrectly using historical knowledge, like the fact that Ramesses might have been the king at that time, and they put it all together to make a perfect movie my school's even doing the musical this year. I'm in it. I mean, could they not take the time? It was whole hyped up because Prince of Egypt was such a good recreation, and they're like, this is going to be the next Prince of Egypt. It wasn't, because it wasn't that accurate. They didn't even get a lot of the characters or the moments right. What Prince of Egypt does correctly is it gets the characters, it gets the moments, it gets the interactions, and it gets everything, almost everything, down to the finest point correct. Play the Homelander piece. It was perfect. I don't care. It fits and it works. But the fact that they hyped this movie up so much, they couldn't even just take the time to read over it and look over it and say, that's not right, that's not right, that's not right. Let's add this, let's take away this. Because they've got 15 different side plots in this entire movie that doesn't make sense. Go watch the movie on your own. I've ranted on this for now 17 minutes. I'm about to stop. But you go watch it on your own. You watch that in Prince of Egypt, and then you come back and tell me what you think. Because it is sad, the fact that they have changed the Bible that much. I will see you all in another video. Goodbye.